Well, I'm not quite sure if everybody's recovered from that. I don't think I've ever watched anything quite so intense. I want to introduce the panel, though most of them need no introduction. My name's Joanna Coles. I'm at the Daily Beast, and I'm thrilled to be here with KJ, with Amanda, with Grace, with Monica, and of course with Warren. And I want to start with everybody, actually, but Amanda, we should start with you. This is your story. What was it like going through this process?
Big question, no pressure.
Does everybody have a microphone?
Oh.
Wow.
Aha. So I think for me, I'm a little bit above myself at this moment, because it's been my daughter's entire life that we've been working on this project, and it's so amazing to be in a room with all of you sharing this very personal journey that I've been on. And I just am so grateful to everyone on this stage for making it possible. Like, I'm a little bit shocked, so sorry. Thank you. Thank you for caring to be here, and thank you to everyone for caring about my story.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. Monica, how did this story come about? Or not, I mean, we know how Amanda's story came about, but how did the project come about?
Well, Amanda, sorry, thank you.
God, we're really not together at all up here, are we? I mean, this is just the power of your show, KJ, which we'll come to. But Monica.
Right, so Amanda and I first met in 2017. She was giving her first public talk, and I invited her for some tea. And I saw a young woman who was in a lot of pain, and it was a kind of pain that I recognized. She blossomed in the next few years, and I read an incredible interview with Amanda in the New York Times. And in it, Amanda was talking about wanting to make a movie of her memoir. So at the time, I had a first look deal with 20th Television, ran to my executive, Taylor Morgan, who's here tonight, who went to Carrie Burke, who smartly saw and understood what I saw in this story of, we were in these times where we were starting to revisit a lot of young women's stories that had been in the news, and we were looking at them now through a new lens. And that this was a story that we thought we knew, but that we don't. So luckily, shortly after, our incredible KJ came on board, and we always knew we would need a rock star producer. Enter Warren Littlefield and Lisa Harrison and Ann Johnson at the Littlefield Company, and together we somehow did this. So, you know, it's not something I thought I would be doing either. Not to upstage your crying, Amanda.
Enough crying to go around.
So, Monica, at what point did KJ come into the project? Because finding the writer for something like this is the hardest job of all, probably. Grace, not saying that you weren't fantastic, but this all really starts with the writing, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And I think everybody here can probably agree from what you just saw that this is a very special show. And we had an extraordinary meeting. Amanda, her husband, Chris, both of them are also executive producers of the show. And when we met with KJ, she showed up. She had done all the research, and she came with a vision that was so in alignment with who Amanda was. And she had this idea of different ways of storytelling. And I think from very early on, we knew, I mean, I remember us three being on the phone after, and it was like, well, okay, there's literally no doubt here. KJ is the person. And she's done a magnificent job. Amanda, I'm sure you.
100%, yeah. Just the true, like, genuine empathy and the care for everyone. Thank you.
So before this dissolves into a weeping tear fest, and as you can tell, I'm British and I don't believe in crying. I want to get to the hard stuff here, which is the writing of this project. Oh my God, KJ's got tears in her eyes too. Jesus Christ. Kerry Burke, I had no idea what I was walking into when I agreed I would do this for you. KJ, first of all, you went prepared. That's excellent. Can you talk a little bit about that preparation, actually? Was that reading Amanda's book? Was it actually talking to Amanda? Had you guys met by the time that you went for the first meeting with Monica?
There's a large Las Vegas buffet of things. Okay. Ways to answer that question. Of course, I met with Amanda, and I was.
Did you meet with Amanda before you met with Monica?
Monica was my first meeting. I was approached by 20th. Are you interested in the Amanda Knox story? And I was magnetically drawn to it for a variety of reasons. I knew that this 20-year-old child had become a spectacular fascination for some reason, and it just felt wrong to me. But I only had a meshy recollection of, I didn't pay attention to the story of Foxy Knoxy at the time. And that I really wanted to investigate why it was that people had such vehement opinions about not only Amanda and Raffaele's case, but about her as a human being. It really made me extraordinarily curious. I think that culturally and politically right now we're standing very firmly in entrenched beliefs that are often informed by misinformation. Mm-hmm. And this Amanda's story had the scent of that to me, so I was really compelled. And of course there was tomes of research, court documents, memoirs, police reports, forensic videos, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages that myself and my brilliant writer's room, we dove in.
And I mean, I remember covering, before Monica, your story broke, the story of Louise Woodward, the British nanny, similar miscarriage of justice, complicated case. I'm not saying it's the same as yours, but the vehemence with which media go after young women, and also, shockingly, the legal system. I mean, what unfolds with the Italian prosecutor in your story is, I think, extraordinary. And I think, Monica, and I would love you to touch on this, in your story, Impeachment, the episode where you're dealing with the FBI and where they behave utterly illegally was just astonishing to me. And you think that young women are particularly vulnerable. I mean, nobody read your rights to you. The fact you didn't have a proper translator, that you weren't fluent in Italian, it beggars belief. And yet these are the situations that regular girls find themselves in. And what I love about the way you present the story is that, of course, it's a terrible miscarriage of justice, but it's not screaming at you that when you start watching it. So it also works as a huge piece of art, I think. Anyway, Monica, can you just talk about what it was like actually doing Impeachment and what you learned from that you were able to bring to this series? And then, Grace, I would love to talk to you about what it was like playing Amanda.
Well, I think with Impeachment, it was, even though people's subjects are often involved, they might be looking at scripts, or people might have a meeting with someone who's been through a story. It is pretty unheard of that when someone's had a controversial story, that as Amanda will often say, that they get to be an author and part of the story. Of making a dramatized version. And Warren has done many, many incredible things at the Littlefield company, but I'm just going to touch on Dopesick for a second, because I think that we saw, sorry to go off your question, Joanna, and I will not hog the mic, but I think one of the many reasons why Warren was such an incredible person to be at the helm as a producer with this was because I had personally seen in Dopesick, I learned so much, and I learned that I had treated someone that I knew who had an oxy addiction very poorly. And I only learned that from the show, from the emotion of the show. And so with Impeachment, it was, I was very lucky that Ryan Murphy, was willing to try this experiment. And so having worn two hats as a subject and as a producer, I was able to tried to help shepherd.
You did great.
Amanda through in this process. And I think, you're mentioning my interrogation. I don't want to give away episode 2, but
I'm interrogated.
yeah. For how many hours, Amanda?
53 hours over 5 days. Have fun with that.
Yeah. I was only 11 hours at the Ritz-Carlton, so,
Well.
But
Who's comparing?
So Grace, what did it feel like taking on the responsibility of playing this role? You are so compelling in the episode that we've just seen.
Don't make me cry now. Enough.
But it's very different playing a real person to playing a character. What was the research that you did for it?
I mean, I had the most valuable thing right here. I had access to what really happened and what Amanda was really feeling and her emotions through every moment of this, which is the only thing that wasn't publicized at the time. We seemed to know everything else, and people seemed to create who Amanda was. And I just feel so honored that I'm a part of something that gives her the opportunity to reclaim her story. It feels so special to me.
Warren, I feel like the poor white man sitting at the end of the line. This is all about women's
Be
stories.
careful now, Joanna.
I know, I'm like, how far can I go with this? What drew you to the story? Why did you decide to do it?
I think for all of us at my company, we live in a world right now where truth is hard to come by. We feel manipulated by misinformation constantly. And so it felt to us in kind of the why this, why now, that we had an opportunity to examine truth in a 53-hour coerced confession in a language that is not her first language. How does that get to truth? And KJ brilliantly also incorporated into this story the anatomy of bias, as we've all talked about, where media, in an effort to sell, they have an ability particularly to latch on to young women and to label them and to tell their own narrative. And so it felt to us that to tell Amanda's story, to tell this story today in our world, that felt particularly powerful. I and Lisa and AJ, we have a lot of respect for Monica. And when we had an opportunity to work with her and also to listen, that was really compelling. And then the more research we did and the more knowledge we had about Amanda's story, that felt really compelling. And KJ blew us away with her vision. And I think in our lives, what we do is we seek vision, and our job is to protect it. That's really, it doesn't have to come from us. I'm not sure that it does. But I think I can recognize it, and our team, that's where our antenna goes, and then our quest is to protect it. And so that all felt like a wonderful fit for us.
And KJ, can you talk a little bit about the dual timeline that we've got going on? Because I found it so stressful watching it, because even though you knew the outcome, the sort of starting so cleverly with your face, well, with Grace's face, but Amanda under the blanket, and the baby, and the brilliant Sharon Horgan. I mean, fantastic casting in this, by the way. Yeah, Sharon here is so good. What made you think of the the dueling, competing timelines, if you like?
Brevity is not my strong suit. This would have been a more concise answer to the question of why now, which is that Amanda, as a woman, reached out to her former prosecutor, the man I like to call her former hunter, Giuliano Menini, as a wise person, in an effort to, I'm sorry to speak for you, and if I'm misspeaking, jump in, to reclaim a different kind of freedom that had been deprived of her, not only by her imprisonment, but about how we as a society treated her when she came home. And that effort was the lens through which to tell the story, the why now. This is her reclamation of agency and identity, and saying, you know what, to hell with the adversarial arena in which I knew this man before. Let's quiet the noise of the British press and the American press and the Italian press, and I just want to talk to the man who believed lies about me. And she did that, and it was a very exciting premise. Not only for a story, but for a way of living, frankly, and I admire you so much for it. And there was no other entry point into the story after I learned that about her.
So can you tell us about that, what
Yeah.
it was like meeting him?
Well, I just wanted to add one more thing to what KJ said, which is, over the years, many people have approached me to do some kind of dramatization of my story, and I always felt really resistant to it because it never felt like my story. It was just a bad thing that happened to two young women who went to go study abroad, two young women who were 20 years old, barely not children, who had everything ahead of them, and only one of them survived. The end. Like, what kind of story is that? It was just a tragedy. And I didn't really want to be involved in anything that was just a tragedy. And it wasn't until I grew up and I reflected on everything that had happened to me, and I made a choice for the first time in my life to not just react to a bad thing that happened to me, but to be guided by my own vision of what I needed to accomplish. And that's why it felt like this was a story that I could now tell, because I had finally done something instead of had stuff done to me. Meeting him, I don't want to give it away. But what I will say is I have never felt unstoppable until the day that I walked in to speak with Menini. I was unstoppable. And having that, coming from a place of being utterly helpless in front of this man to being absolutely in my own power, was the best thing, the best choice that I could ever make for myself. And I think for him too, because he did not see it coming.
Amazing. So it sounds like you all, despite the story and despite the tear fest that we've had up here, it actually sounds like you all, that this was a really fun project to work on. Is that a fair characterization?
I think we all believe in gallows humor. And
Yes.
So I think, sorry.
I love the projection,
I think,
though.
right. I think we all sort of have had experiences in our lives, including Lisa and AJ, where we've relied on gallows humor. And so I think this was a very, unless you were being sarcastic, Joanna, sorry.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I mean, what I'm struck by is that you all have this sort of bond up here. And
Yes.
And also the reclaiming of women's stories, so long overdue, is often a very bonding thing for women. And that's sort of what I was getting, and you were including Warren too.
Thank you, Joanna. It was. Was it hard? Yeah, it was incredibly demanding. We were in Italy. We shot in Italy for a little over a month. We prepped for months, and then we went to Vancouver, and we went to Budapest. Spent the winter in Budapest, but there was a tremendous bond. I also have to say, Grace presents a master class in performance. And that is so memorable and powerful, and you've seen a fraction of it here tonight. But Grace was also our partner. 7 days a week for 6 months, what we put on her shoulders, what we asked her to do, she's in almost every scene. It was, yes, learned Italian. And also, we didn't shoot in order. There are places, there are days when she was supposed to be less proficient in Italian, and then the next day she had to be more proficient in Italian because it was a different timeline. It was unbelievably, incredibly difficult, and yet, you're absolutely right, Joanna. In what you're getting is there was a wonderful bond, and there was absolutely fun.
Can I say a little story that's like
Of course
like
you
this?
can. You're allowed to say whatever you like. This is your story. This is your very well-earned evening.
I loved getting to know the cast and being on set and, God damn it. I mean, so, I was there during the interrogation scene, right? Freaking 10 hours a day for 2 days straight from every freaking angle possible. And in between, I'm obviously talking with you, Grace, but also I'm talking with the actors who are playing the cops, some of whom are here tonight. And like... Woo! And I hung out with them and I talked with them not just because I treasure every moment that I have to practice Italian. It was because they were real people who really cared about their characters and they wanted to understand why they would put a young girl through an experience like this. And we really, bonded over talking about this was a traumatic thing for everyone. Everyone was, the spotlight of the world was on Perugia, Italy for the first time, and they felt this responsibility, and they also hadn't slept in 48 hours, and, they were tired, and they were angry, and they didn't understand what I was saying half the time. And so, of course they're going to be on this psychological journey with me, and and then we would so they would go out and do that to poor Grace, and then they would come back into, the little hangout room, and we would just chill and joke and have a just bond. And I don't know, it made me feel a little bit better about police officers even after the fact, because I am scared of uniforms to this day. But that helped a little. It helped me feel even if I never have the chance to confront the actual police who did this to me, I'm really just remembering that they're real people. They really are just the complicated, beautiful people that they are, even after having done this to me. And so I'm just grateful to the cast as well for bringing that heart to everyone who was involved.
Well, that's an extraordinarily graceful thing to say. What is next for you now?
Me? Is this for me?
Yeah. Well, these people, this is what they do for a living. This is... What's next for your life? And I have actually so many questions I want to... I'm conscious we're running out of time, but what is next for you? And then I want to come to KJ about something.
Well, I've really enjoyed learning over the course of this process. I feel like everyone here has taken me under their wing, and so I would love to continue storytelling and, helping other women and other people tell their stories as well. So that's something that I would really love to do.
And KJ, there's a moment in that first episode where Grace/Amanda is walking across that sort of square and the motorbike goes past her, and collectively everybody jumped. We all just jumped. Can you just tell us about that moment? Because to me it was such an artful moment to tell us that something was coming that was extremely alarming, but you didn't expect it, and it was also a small thing that happens to everybody. It's incredibly relatable, almost being run over by an e-bike. It happens every day in New York City, and yet it carried with it, as a dramatic moment, so much freight. It was quite brilliant.
Thank you. I thought it was really important, and especially in the first 10 minutes of the piece, to show Amanda's vulnerability. A very unique vulnerability that young women have, certainly, walking in a strange city. And the innocence and the naivete and the romanticism with which she viewed the world, and even the magical realism with which there was a very real, violent sound and potentially violent collision that never happened. I wanted the audience to have that visceral sense of, gosh, she's just a hair's breadth away from something terrible happening to her, and yet she's singing and walking the world. And I thought that was a nice way, not a nice way, a powerful way to encapsulate what it means to be a young woman on a journey to find herself and explore life, not knowing what dangers are around the nearest corner.
Well, it was a brilliant moment. All right, final question to you, Amanda. I'm sure there are lots of people, lots of parents sitting in this audience whose children are probably pleading with them to let them go abroad for a year. What advice would you give them?
I think a lot of people ask me this question, like if you could have done anything differently, and like I think the answer is not that I could have done anything differently, because there are things that happen to everyone in their life even when they do everything right, something bad still will happen. Like Meredith did everything right. She was walked home by her friends the night she was killed. She was in her own bedroom when she was attacked. She did everything right. And so no, there's no way to be totally safe from bad things that happen to you in this world. Instead, if you do survive those bad things, I guess the thing that I would not recommend per se, but just put out there is that those bad things don't have to define you. That you can survive them, and that you can have a say in who you become on the other side.
Well, what an extraordinary way to end. And Monica, you've also done exactly the same. Many congratulations to all of you for what is an extraordinarily good and lasting series. Please join me in thanking everybody.